All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Key to Games podcast here on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. Now, hopefully, fingers crossed, finally completely lag and internet stuttering free, as I've gone from a 5 meg upload to getting my internet fixed and now being about 35 to 40. So, fingers crossed you guys will not be seeing us like lag out or stutter or any other issues going forward. But as always, my co-host is indie game developer Joshua Reyes, who is working on the game Samurai Pig. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent. I'm really excited to be lag free for this cast, and I'm just doing good. Always a pleasure. So let's get going, Josh.
Yeah. Hello, Amanda, and let me show you the name, Mumuma. Thanks for
welcome,
coming out. Yeah,
for
so
sure.
It's been a very exciting week, at least for me, with regards to that. Now that the internet issues have been fixed, hopefully they will stay fixed. It will once again open things up for playing more local games online for our multiplayer nights, now that my bandwidth can handle it. And I may be confirming books 6 and 7 in the coming days, so really looking forward to that one. And of course, the week's been busy writing videos and making some more networking connections, which I'm excited about. And as a bit of a heads up, I did record with Rob another episode of Indie Inquiry. So we're going to be doing a relaunch of the reviewing of the indie game store pages. So if people are interested in getting their store pages reviewed, let us know. I will probably be posting that this week. And if people enjoy it, we'll continue things up and keep reviewing store pages and providing advice for developers.
Valuable information, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, your Steam store page is one of the main things, and getting it critiqued and looked over is something that is real important, in your development and your journey, for sure. So if you have an indie game, definitely contact Josh so he can make it get you going.
Mm-hmm. Or break it on stream. I can also do that very easily.
That's right. Now you can. It's a whole new world, Josh.
Yes. Thank you, Mumuma. But speaking about important information, it's time to get to our topic for today. So this is kind of a continuation from last week's show, where we talked about showing off games at trade shows and conventions, and we were both kind of like holding our respective tongues because we were really wanting to talk about demos as well, which is its own separate topic. And lo and behold, that's what we're going to be talking about for this week. Because this is another aspect of marketing your game and showing it off that can sink or swim games if you are not careful.
Yeah, and I feel like, so I was, for this whole week since we've been talking about it, I've been thinking, I said, in my whole gaming life, I said, not only as a developer, just as a gamer, I said, has a demo ever persuaded me to purchase a game? Mm-hmm. And I had to really say to myself, no, that if I was interested in a game, I was already interested in the game through marketing, through videos, through something else. And I didn't really need a demo to push me over the edge of purchasing it. So I'm going to say, in my head, I don't feel like they've ever been effective to use. I really wanted to ask you, as more of a lifelong journalist and study of it, would you feel like the demos benefit? Have it ever sold you on a game? You've been like, yep, I wasn't going to play it. Now I am. Now that I played it, I know what it's about. I feel more often than not, it would make you kind of say no to a game sometimes.
I think if we were talking 20, 25 years ago, the answer would be no, just because of how limited information was. Right. And even just the ability to get access to demos. It was pretty much, you wait for a PC gamer to send you a demo disc or a PlayStation magazine, stuff like that.
Go into Sears or Toys R Us or something.
I would say in the past, maybe 5-7 years, I think, as we've seen more indie developers come up and really trying to get their games in front of people, I think demos have kind of had a resurgence, or at least the marketing aspect of them. I'm trying to... There's been a few games, Webbed, I think, would probably be a really good example. We tried a demo for that one 2 festivals ago, and then I immediately wishlisted it and wanted to play more of it. And I think for traditional games, the ones that we already know, your platformers, your first person shooters, things like that, demos don't really give you like the unique selling point of them.
Right.
But if we're talking about from the independent space and your game is some unique, visual novel cooking game or a street racing roguelike or something that you can't really, put into like a 3 sentence blurb, exactly what this game is, then I think demos do have their place. And as I was saying that, I was just thinking of another example that has lost me I had it and then I lost it while talking about it. What was it? Oh man! Again, this one's when you play like 20 to 30 demos a month. It all just
blends together.
But I just remember a Turbo Overkill, the demo
Overkill.
for
You turned me onto that one. That's right.
Yeah, that is I think another really good example that I was like halfway in. Oh, Ghost Lore, the one that I just played this last week, the South East Asian ARPG. Like, this was a game that if you look at the store page, you look at the game, it's like, okay, it's an ARPG. So what? But when we played it, there was definitely potential there. The same for Turbo Overkill. I mean, you can look at screenshots and watch videos, and yes, it's a first-person shooter, just like Doom and Ultra Kill and Dusk, and pick any boomer shooter that you can, throw a stone at these days. But with the demo, we can see what makes it different. We can see why you should be excited about it. So I guess here's a question for you and for the audience. Do you think that early access has taken the place of demos? Or do you think that even with an early access build, you could still consider having a demo for your game as well?
Yeah, I think definitely like you could consider it, but I definitely feel like, and I think that most gamers would agree, they feel like early access has been a crutch that developers are using, um, and it has kind of replaced demos, right? So like, I'm more than likely to see something on early access than a demo for it. I'm actually more surprised when I see a demo than early access. I'm like, wow, they made a demo. Um, so yeah, I think they both can coexist, but again, that's just so much. I want to get further into that in a little bit more like logistics about
Yeah.
the manpower behind developing a demo and then a build, and then we also make like inside builds that we send to publishers or our investors and stuff like that. So there's just like a lot of offloaded workload just for that one purpose, right? And it's like,
Yep.
could you, again, for like really unique games, like you were like, I would have never seen that in a blurb, I would have never experienced, there's no way you can get across something unique like that in a demo. So for sure, small indie games, nothing cookie cutter, right? You don't need to do a cookie cutter demo, but if you have something really unique, a really unique indie game, and you just, I don't know how to even explain this, the only way is for you to play it, and of course then it's needed. um, right, but I think that definitely like early access is really kind of like taking demos by a storm. And I think, but
Yes.
a demo should be way more of just a packaged small experience, little bite-sized thing that you maybe can consume in maybe, I don't know, what do you think, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that.
Yeah. And what you just said there about logistics of designing a demo, that is a very big point. Because one of the things that we've spoken about a lot, especially with the indie inquiry shows and just reviewing games, is that you don't want to have a weak link. You don't want to have, a really impressive game, but a horrible store page. Or, you spend all this time on your store page and your demo is horrible. Like, it's better not to have something bad than to
Yeah.
just have it there thinking that you're just, checking it off the list and it needs to be there.
Yeah.
And it is very difficult. And like you said, and like what Chad is saying, like early access has been huge. Huge in terms of changing, I think, how a lot of developers approach designing their games, and especially how you are marketing yourself as a company. Because we have seen developers who have really embraced early access. They are
Big
on
time.
the forums every day. They are releasing even weekly or bi-weekly builds. They are, excuse me, announcing every major update on Twitter and social media, and it works. And then we see developers who they will put their very first version of the game on early access. They disappear for 6 months to a year, and then everyone's wondering, is this game dead? And where the heck is the person? So just like with everything that we say, you need to approach things with as much of a high quality as you can if you want things to work out.
Right. And like you were saying, like developers putting out the early access and then not communicating with their team, they just literally disappear, right? And when they're like, well, we're still working on it, but you have to get, especially if you're doing an early access build, you need to be communicating with your audience and letting them know, like, literally daily, because gamers are ravenous and they will consume, they
Mhm.
want to know what's going on. If you're developing a community, you can't really leave them hanging, so you have to like continually work on it. So an early access is basically like an ongoing live service game, if you want to think about it in that respect. And it's like,
Mhm.
do you want to do that? Or instead, could you just maybe get some proper play testing done? Um,
Mhm.
bug reporting. Someone mentioned, they're not reporting bugs. They might be, but they're not reporting the things that you really want to know. If you want to have concrete information that you really want to study, or like that, then you'd need play testers, really, to do that. And so, like, early access, it's kind of like muddying the water in that respect, and just really, like, and I think also players kind of like backlash against it a little bit, like, we're free beta testers, we're free labor for you. And sometimes some people do lash against that, and guess, unless they're like really into the game.
Mhm. And to Shell's comment, when I did, I just got mentioned in the credits from the game. That's all I got. I didn't even get paid for doing the beta testing or
Hmm.
testing with Shrapnel. Yep, and I think this is why we've seen kind of this resurgence of talking about demos and prologues, because it's even less of an investment on the consumer side. And this has even been propelled more thanks to the Steam festivals and Next
Yeah.
Fest and so on.
Yeah.
That I don't need to spend any amount of money. I think that's also where, like, kind of like a bit of a psychological aspect of it. That yes, you can buy a game and get a 2 hour window, but there's still that idea that you are, putting money on your credit card or you're taking it out of your bank to try this game. Whereas with a demo or Next Fest build, it's go website, click button, I play the game,
Try it out.
demo's done, uninstall it, and then I decide what I do from there.
Right, right. Really simple transitional process. Um, and yeah, like the next festivals. I mean, and like I mentioned that last time. Like, Steam is really pushing it for like indie developers. They really want us to participate, and I think they're kind of trying to push that. How we were talking about online virtual forums like that, and so they're really trying to push indie developers to participate in that more and really get demos out. So yeah, definitely a resurgence of demos for sure, with the online platforms and the festivals.
Hmm. Nice. Yeah, and trying to make a good demo, that's, I think, kind of where we'll
That's
spend a
yeah,
whole lot of
yeah,
time on here. Hello,
yeah.
Smokeback. Thanks for stopping by. Yep.
Hey, spoke back. Welcome.
A good demo, I think, in of itself is also an art form or a major
Yeah.
aspect of design, because every genre is different. Like, we can say a 5 minute demo for a platformer can certainly be good, but
Hmm.
a 5 minute demo for a strategy game is literally nothing. That's just basically you figuring out what the starting conditions for your map are, and then the demo's over.
Right.
So the question, and I'm sure we're all going to have different points for this, is what is essential for a demo? What must be in your demo if you want it to be put in front of people and have them look at it?
Uh, I'm gonna say what shouldn't be in the demo for sure is, there shouldn't be any confusion in the demo, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like, onboarding needs to be one of the main focuses, I believe, of your demo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you want to tutorialize or teach any of the aspects of the game, that's the time to do it, right? And you need to do it in the most solidified and easy, digestible way for someone, possibly even think trade show wise factor speed. So for sure, you need to show the most important factors of your game, what sets it apart. You need to get to it quickly, and then of course have everything explained. Like you can't drop a player in and say, "Hey, this is a strategy game, right? This is a 4X game," and say it uses all the same controls as Civ 4. So there you go. Like you can't do certain things like that. So everything needs to be tutorialized. I think that's probably one of the most important factors is onboarding on the tutorial to tell them what their experience they're going to get is what they should be expecting from it, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you said, onboarding is a very big deal about this. The players should be knowing how to even play this game, because if they can't figure it out from your demo, there's no way in heck they're going to buy your game or check it on early access.
And I cannot tell you like how many demos I've loaded up and not known what to do. Like I'm there and I don't know. There's nothing's explained to me. Nothing's there, and I'm like, well, thank you. And that's a thing. So like, please don't please let the player know what you're supposed to be doing in the demo, right? A guided demo, because we're talking about demos that you're downloading. There's no one behind you explaining, hey, don't go there or this and that. You're sitting in your comfort and you're like, you know what? They didn't decide to teach me, to show me to do this or that. And you'll easily just leave and go to the next demo in the festival.
Yeah. And you have to make sure that you want to avoid using anything that's placeholder in your game.
Yeah.
And I know that that's going to hurt. I think I may have just wounded a lot of indie developers watching this, or they may have just gotten like a sharp pain in their chest.
Oh my god, that's all I got. It's placeholder art right now, Josh.
And it is unfortunate, but like we've said, like when we are talking about demos, just like with your store page, you want to be as presentable as you can. And I'm going to read his question as soon as I finish my train of thought. Yeah. But it's okay to mention in the demo stuff like, hey, we didn't do any, balancing is not there yet, or, there may be bugs, or, things may be changed.
Right. Like if you go to a menu and it says not available yet. Yeah. Cool. I understand that. I'm good with that, right? Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. But you don't want to have stuff in there that's like, okay, all of our menus are not done yet. Or, instead of enemies, we just have, pictures of, little stick figures. Unless your game is a stick figure game, and there's no shame in that.
Yeah.
But, like, one of the things that, like, I remember this was a demo. I just thought this was, like, just to make me annoyed. The demo purposely had the entire options menu grayed out. So you couldn't do any control bindings, volume sliders. Like, this is just to insult me. Like, this is they knew I was going to play this demo, and they did this to aggravate me.
Literally, I think like every time I've seen anybody load up a demo, that's the first thing everybody goes to, the menu. They go, what can I adjust in the menu? Need to know if I go through the subtitles. So for sure, always, I'm going to put that first. Make sure your menu works, right? Because a broken menu says so much. Please make sure your menu works. Tutorialize it, work on the onboarding, and then really focus. Like, okay, if you're making a demo, if you're making a demo, that means that your game is demoizable. It's a good game,
friendly,
demo friendly. So that means that you need to, because it's demo friendly, you need to show the most important aspects about it. So just like you were saying, don't put placeholder art or something like that. Don't leave the most important mechanic of your game out. Because if it's not working,
Yep, and that's another really good point. If your game has any unique selling features, they need to be in your demo. If it's a first-person shooter, but you can also, use hovering and jetpacks and so on, I want to see that. There's a demo that I played last festival. This was a roguelike that was all about anti-gravity. So the whole point of the demo is that you are completely free, you are not held to gravity. So you float around, you're shooting, and the shooting's propelling you. And it was a really interesting concept. And that was front displayed in that demo. And you need to be aware, again, of what the person is trying to make use of, or what is the point of playing this game? And I can see we got a few questions, so we better get them
Yeah.
before they all
Let's get
scroll
right
off.
of yeah.
To Smokeback's comment, would a roguelite be good to release as a demo or early access? And hello, Pug, as well.
Pug.
And again, roguelikes, anything that is randomized or replayable along those lines, they're both really good candidates for demos as well
Yeah,
as for early access. Early
definitely.
access, I think one thing that I think we can all agree on is that if your game is 100% linear, like this is a completely story-driven game, established beginning, middle, and end, it's not the best game for early access. Simply because you're not going to have people keep coming back and trying out each new build if it's the exact same story. If your game is replayable, again, if it's procedurally or randomly generated, you know that you can deliver a different experience. That is definitely really good for early access. Again, Duskers being a prime example of this, and just having all those hands and eyes looking at that game, exploring it, and getting all the information over to Tim to update and refine it. And you
Yeah,
need
like
that. Yeah.
yeah, like literally to expand on that, literally like, roguelikes are probably like one of the prime demo friendly ones because it's so much replayability, and so you can like it can be streamed, and every time someone streams something, you'll get a new experience, a new different thing. So roguelikes are really good in that respect to demo ice, definitely for sure.
Mm-hmm. And let's see. Next question from Mumuma. What's wrong with just letting the player play the first 30 minutes of your game? The problem, I think there's two distinct areas, at least for me. The first is, what does the first 30 minutes of your game look like? If your game, let's say, spends 20 of those minutes doing cutscenes and just very slow pace, you're not even showing the player unique aspects, they're going to end up getting bored and they're just not going to want to play it. The other aspect is that in those 30 minutes, can you deliver on what is unique? Because you do not want someone to walk away from your demo, play your full game, and go, wait, what's all this? I didn't play this before. When we played the demo for Unsighted, as a good example, Unsighted is a really great action, high speed game. The demo did not mention anything about the time limits and having this like real time counter that characters will die, if you don't help them after a certain amount of time. Now, of course, they mentioned that in the full game, but it was very weird for that demo to completely disregard this major aspect of the
Right,
storytelling and the gameplay. You don't
right.
want people to feel like they're being misled by your demo.
Right. Definitely misled is like very important factor. Like you want to make sure that it doesn't appear like you're just smoke and mirroring people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is just a I'm just trying to make it look like this. That's not really a demo. That would be more like a vertical slice that you're presenting to a publisher or something like that. A demo is a fully polished product that you want the customer that is going to be like it's just a small bite-sized representation of the game. And when we're talking about playing like okay 30 minutes of the game, again, what part of the game is going to be the best representation of 30 minutes? And as when you're developing a game, I can't just pull out like 30 minutes of a game and then say, okay, here, play this because it's everything's connected in a way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I can't pull something out or block you here or block you in this way and quarter you off. And it's not, you can't do that. When you're making a demo, you have to specifically design the whole experience, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
I'm making, depending, of course, depending on your game,
Yep.
so you need to make sure that it's showing off again what you're doing, all the important stuff, but it's going to be like literally created just for that demo. We're basically making almost a separate game for that demo. So it's not as easy as just pulling out content and then putting the player in that content again.
Mm-hmm. And again, as you said, different genres have different rules for all this. Because
Yeah.
you can show off very quickly in a platformer what makes your platformer so different. If
Yeah.
we're talking about a puzzle game or again, a game that has very unique mechanics and systems, that is a lot harder. And like Josh just said, for a lot of games, you can't just, excuse me, take, cut off 30 minutes of your game, put into a demo, and say, job's done. And we've seen some developers, they will cut up their game in a way to present like a 15 to 30 minute, kind of encapsulation of the game. So we're going to let you play level 1. Then we'll let you play level 15. Then we'll let you play level 38. Maybe we'll have a boss fight, and then the demo's over. So you're purposely not showing the game in the exact path, but you're basically giving the player, again, that entire kind of like a full course of what this game is going to be like when you play the finished version. I was trying to find...
questions there.
There's another game that I played. And again, the problem is I play way too many. I have too many games on my wish list.
Too many games.
Which makes it very hard to find specific examples unless I just scroll through 900.
Is there a wish list limit? Or can you just unlimited wish list?
I'm up to 998, so
okay.
I'm definitely not there yet. There is one. But when it comes to kind of showing off your game, here it is. The game Akura, Akura. This is kind of like a Sokoban style puzzle game that also kind of like an open, like Zelda-like world, or the original Zelda. And we really enjoyed this one. And again, a puzzle game is very different from a platformer. And you have to be aware of how much and how little you want to show someone. Because there is certainly complaints if your demo or your prologue is too long. Like, if we're starting to get into, like, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, that kind of territory, that may be too long for a demo. And you may... And I have some thoughts on this, so I want to pass over to you first. Like, what are your thoughts on, like, a super long demo and why that may not be the best strategy?
For one... I think a super long demo, they're gonna play that super long demo and have their fill. Like, unless they're really hooked. Like, isn't that like probably the average time that most gamers are gonna play a game, as if they're just game hopping and stuff like that? And you're like, oh, all right, 30 minutes, I got it. Okay, cool. They're not gonna wishlist it, they're not gonna buy it, and they played it. So too long of a demo gives too much of the game away, right? And so, yeah, I you just can't have to. It's really neat. I've played really long, neat demos. I never bought the game, but I thought it was really neat to have a really cool demo. I appreciate it, but I think it's very ineffective. What's your thoughts on that, Josh?
Yeah, and I think it's the same thing. Like, especially if you start to get bored or the demo starts to tire you out, because you want the player, you want that demo to kind of end like with like the record skip. You want the player to feel like, oh my god, I want to see what's next. You want the player to be like, oh, it's over finally.
Yeah.
And it's tough to get that balance right, because you want to show the player as much as you can, but you also need to make sure that it's as tight as you can. And I think, as we said earlier, that a good demo for a game, at least for a reflex-driven one, again, strategy and puzzle games, that's its own beast right now, I would say 20 to 30 minutes. Would you say that for an action or reflex-based game?
Exactly, yeah. 15, 20 minutes, I think, is what you should aim for. And more than that, you can offer replayability, like roguelikes and stuff like that, replayability of it, but not extended padded content. So 15 minutes, sweet spot, record skip. I want to know more about it, but if you give me too much about it, I know too much about it, and I've already literally played the game 30, 40 minutes in, I know what the game is, and I might not want to get it.
Yeah. And again, and to continue off what Josh has said about roguelikes and replayable based games, yes, you can for a demo for a roguelike, you could spend 5-10 hours on that. That's easy, because it's a randomly procedurally generated game. But in terms of content, you want those runs to be very bite-sized, very compact. And I would argue, if we are talking about like a roguelike or roguelite style game, you may want to condense that run down, especially if a normal run for your game is an hour, 2 hours, that kind of length. And we've seen some really good prologues and demos, I think, of roguelikes that, here's 30 minutes, but you can just keep replaying it again and again and again. What was the game? Luck Be a Landlord, I think was a good example of that, which was kind of like a slot machine style roguelite that was like very unusual, but it had some really great concepts to it.
Yeah, I think that game, Luck Be a Landlord, probably is a good example, right, of a demo game, very unique, and something that probably would be play. You need to play it to experience it to understand what's happening or what is unique about the game.
Yeah. Another good demo that I played a few weeks ago, and hopefully I can find it on my Steam library. Because again, that is the Nightmare. Here it is, Tinykin. This is probably like the first game that was being published by the studio was at a Tiny Build that I really enjoyed, and this was a 3D platformer. So how they structured their demo was: here's your tutorial, here's stage one, and that is basically the entire demo. And you have like
Yeah,
the full entirety of stage one to explore and tear apart if you want. And I think
yeah,
that is a good way to go. Like again, you want the demo to be. And I think we spent about an hour in the demo, and again, that was me combing over every inch of that first stage. But it did show off enough of the unique mechanics. Like by the end of that demo, I had a pretty good idea as to, okay, what is the rest of this game going to look like? And that's what you want. I would say the only downside of that demo was that it didn't have that, record skip moment, that big impact at the end. It was just like, you beat stage one, congratulations.
congrats. You
Okay,
know what
get
the
out.
game
The
is.
game's
Yeah,
done. Get out. You're done here.
yeah. I think I played quite a few. I've played a few good It's really good for like a 3D platformer or
Mhm.
platformers. You could really get across what the game is because those are simple. I think maybe could you do it for a shooter? I don't know. Mm,
Maybe if
maybe.
like again like something like Ultra Kill or Turbo
Yeah,
Overkill, I think
yeah,
that is a really good way. Like make sure your demo ends with a boss fight. Or one of the things I think always drives people crazy is when you show the boss fight and then the demo ends before you can actually fight it. That always annoys people when it's in those games.
yeah. Hey, welcome, Joe. And then we got a question right there. Um,
And
that
hello,
he's actually,
Melanius.
yeah, he says he's actually played a demo of the game. Is more like friends' recommendation of the game
Hmm.
or gaming media convinced me. And so that's before I haven't got to that part yet when we were talking about
Hmm.
how much development time and logistics and everything like that. But that's the thing. Like, is it better spent? Really, again, depending on your game. Your game is more cookie cutter, not so original, it doesn't have some strange time mechanic or something that you just have to play to see. Is the money better spent if you had money? And we're talking because any development is money. You're working on everything is
Hmm.
money. Um, if you, it's better to just marketing get videos out, get just market in a different way, and actually just work on the game instead of getting the demo done, right? Because I
Hmm.
think the side thing that we haven't mentioned is like how many demos have turned you away from the game, right? How many demos have you played that have been like,
Hmm.
oh, I'm not playing that, but there's a chance that you might have played it or you might have been interested. You were fully interested in the game before, but you played the demo and that was a no go, and that was because maybe the demo
Hmm.
wasn't created. It isn't perfect genre for that.
Yeah.
Demos are a whole different science to themselves, like you were saying earlier. It's
Hmm.
a whole different world when we're designing demos. So
Yeah.
we got to keep that in a factor when we're thinking about that.
Yeah, and here's a really good example of that. The game Code Vein that came out, I think, 2 years ago, I think, at this time.
Yeah,
It was basically anime vampire Dark Souls.
yeah.
The PC demo for it was released with keyboard and mouse, or I'm sorry, with gamepad functionality not working. You could only play with
I
keyboard and
remember
mouse.
that. I was so amped to play that because I was
Yeah.
like an anime Dark Souls. I'm in,
Hmm.
and I only play with I only play with my on the PC. I play with my controllers when I'm playing action games or
Hmm.
whatever. And because of that, I was like, I'm not playing this.
Yep, and of course it was fixed obviously in the retail version, but that is something you should never do. You do not want to have major issues in your demos because again, a lot of people are going to treat your demo as a finished product. They
Right.
see this as something that they intend to consume and then decide, okay, do I want more of this? And if your demo is not presented in that way, why would they give you 10, 15, 20, $30 or more to buy your full game? And oh, go ahead.
I think like Mumuma was saying, he was like, well, why can't we just put 30 minutes into the
Mm-hmm.
game, right? And it's for that reason, right?
Yeah. And from the logistics standpoint, as you just said, indie developers especially have a lot of things on their plate. And
Yeah,
it
man.
can be very difficult to balance all of this out there. I think this is one of the reasons why early access has really become popular is that you're basically killing three birds with one stone.
Right.
You are working on the game, you are creating marketing material because people can play your early access, and it's also its own form of a demo or pre-release build so you get people to play it and they can play test it and you're getting paid for it while they're doing it.
And you're
And
getting funding, right? Yeah. Yeah.
and again, like as we said before, sometimes you never know when that game is going to perfectly resonate with people. Vampire Survivors. I mean, nobody, even the developers themselves, could have predicted how much people have enjoyed that game, and it led to them completely, redesigning their entire plan for that game. Now that they have all these hundreds of thousands of eyes on it, Prison Architect by Introversion that
There you
they were
go.
expecting to be a very small thing. Introversion never had a breakout success, and it became the poster child for early access. They went, I think, like an extra year or two more of adding in more content. Clay. Clay Entertainment has also been a really good use of early access as a way of refining and getting that final like 15 to 20% of their game perfect and letting people enjoy it and give them all that playtest and feedback. Yep.
Perspective.
Yep, it's instrumental. I remember I enjoyed Uplink, and I'm not sure we
Yeah.
can still play that one. And DevCon was fun too.
DEFCON. Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
like the postcard they used to have like for promotional stuff. I think I still have that around here somewhere.
Um. Yeah. What do you think about that? People demanding a demo before they buy the game. Do you think there's a lot of gamers out there that are like, I'm not going to buy a game unless there's a demo? I don't think. I don't.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the world, and this could probably be its own topic, with the rise of YouTube and
I
streamers
was
have.
just about to say that. I was just like, is it even necessary? Because we have streamers and YouTubers,
Mhm.
and there's so many ways to see how the game plays. You'll know everything about it by watching somebody. Like, you can find out the things about the game. So, is it like really necessary
Yeah.
anymore? You know?
So here's a question for you and for the audience as well. Is like talking about short demos. I've seen a lot of horror designers. I think it has become a really big marketing push to have demos or intro versions of their horror games. We saw this with that Happy's Burger Farm that came out last year. Like channels, there are specifically like YouTubers who just cover all the demos and intros. A Manly Badass Hero, what was it, Alpha Beta Gamer, and a few others who they play these demos. And my point, or why I don't like kind of like this kind of short form, is that it just feels like the demo doesn't really like show off the games. Like, it feels like with horror games in particular, you kind of want to go in as blind as
It's
possible.
possible.
And like this is
Uh,
not the same as having like a short form horror. Like there are people who release 15 to 30-minute long horror games. This is releasing a 10 to 30-minute long demo for a horror game.
yeah, that's wild. I think, uh, I don't even know. I think that's a whole nother thing in there, how you'd even market a horror game like properly without
Hmm.
um be I really don't know. I'm out of words for that one because that's why I don't make horror games, because that's the one thing that I would have no idea how to market that properly.
Mhm,
Uh, and I think very few have. I mean, the horror game market is very niche, right? It's
mhm,
pretty small because of that reason alone. It's hard to market, and then now with YouTube and everything, your horror game can get spoiled. So,
mhm.
um, I don't know. I think it's really hard to do that
Yeah.
there.
And there is one unusual exception to that point, and something that I'm surprised nobody in chat has brought up. But it kind of gets into this idea of having like themed demos or collaboration demos. We have the Haunted PlayStation 1 demo disc is probably the prime example
Love
of
it.
this.
I love
That
that.
it's basically just a collection of horror game demos. I mean, you could just literally download every single demo from itch or Steam or wherever they're located. But the package, I think this kind of gets what we were talking about with demos as a whole, that the package or the wrapper, I think, elevates the demo itself. That it's not just I have to go find 20 different demos. Here's this like very weird, it's like a game within a game, and I can check out all these demos right here and there. And like the demos for these, again, they're maybe 10 to 20 minutes at their most for a horror game. And again, I think it works, but it just feels weird, like for a horror game, that you're kind of, I guess, like giving up the trick before the game is actually out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I am a big fan of that PS1 horror game story. Like, I love that style. I love
Mm-hmm.
that resurgence. That's a whole other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like, from New York was saying, the times have changed. You don't have to rely on gaming media. You
Mm-hmm.
have YouTubers or other platforms and stuff. Um, and so that's kind of what can hurt horror, when you're trying to get horror games out there again. But like, I guess, giving up the trick is definitely the thing. And I think for horror, the whole thing is the mystery, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're giving a demo up for a mystery, what's the point of the horror demo? I'm not sure, but
Yeah. And again, if you do something legitimately different with your horror game, just like with any other genre, then I think a demo could apply here. Because again, you want people to know, why should I play this game? What is going to stand out from all the other horror, all the other platformers? And you can't, again, really. I think with the whole YouTuber and streamer side, that aspect can be hard to get across depending upon the person who's covering it. If someone is
right.
just, doing a 100% playthrough, they're not saying one word, then, it's a platformer. It looks like every other platformer. But if you get somebody who's actually talking through it and explaining it, that does, I think, help sell it.
Yeah, or it can help totally trash your game
True.
too, right? You can have a very toxic streamer or YouTuber just, you know, decimating your game and tearing it apart, and so that's another thing. Before we forget though, let's get to I want to get to the logistics of
Mm-hmm.
it. If there's not another question up, when we're talking about it, right? So I'm a game developer. I have a studio, and we'll just keep it simple. Let's say I don't know, my budget is 200,000, right,
Mm-hmm.
for this year. And out of that year, it's going to take me, if I want to make a demo and I want to do it right, maybe it's going to take me 3 months, 6 months. How much is that going to cost me out of my development time,
Mm-hmm.
right, to do that? We're saying out of that 200, it could cost me maybe 80,000, 90,000. I don't know, a ton. Just depends on what we're doing or what we're going to do. Um, and then so again, is the reward for all of that diverting, because we're not just going to take our demo and then turn the demo into the game, right? It's not just going to expand into the game. It's a little
Mm-hmm.
bit different. They're two different entities. So we're kind of, again, and I've explained this, making two separate games. So is it really worth it to invest half a year of a development to get a demo in, and then is that demo going to yield negative or positive results, right? So we're just saying I blew half a year of a development of the game to try and get the game out there and to
Mm-hmm.
try and get it marketed, and is that really a good idea? that's the one thing that I've been pondering over and wondering what you think about that.
Yeah. And we'll get to Mumuma's question in a few minutes. I do want to talk about prologues as well. But yeah, like there's one thing that I've always wondered. Like when we talk about like the older, or when we talk about like the magazines who have like the
Yeah.
PC Gamer or the PlayStation One discs, do the magazines themselves create those demos, or I assume they get the code or they get the demo from the developer, who then they put it and they upload it or they burn it onto the disc.
Yeah, no, they get it. They get it from the
Yeah.
developer. So the developer would send them the demo, and it's just like, who has demos now this week? I love that, man. I gotta say, if you didn't have the experience of going to like a bookstore and opening up a magazine and getting a demo disc, that was one of the coolest things.
Yeah.
I think Pug mentioned getting one out of cereal boxes. That's even
Yeah.
cooler. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Resident Evil 2 remake demo. Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
You know what? That demo, I started the podcast saying I don't think one has sold me. That demo actually did. That was the one that I played that demo, and I think that was a nearly perfect demo. Like you could replay it, you could
Mm-hmm.
find out new things. Like people were playing the demo, streaming the demo, like speed running the demo. The weirdest
Yeah.
thing. So that I think that was probably like one of the perfect. And I bought that game immediately because of the demo.
Resident
Um,
Evil 4 and the original Devil May Cry, probably for
yeah,
me. Yeah,
right.
and yeah, like to the Resident Evil 2 demo, like that is a very unusual circumstance because with 7 as well, like Capcom basically made an original game out of their demos. Like with the Resident Evil
Yeah.
7 one, there was like this whole mystery aspect of it. There were multiple endings to a demo. Like I don't think an indie dev has that budget for that.
No,
But I
no.
mean, Capcom gets a few gold stars for that. And yet, I want to get to the Resident Evil 2 remake demo, that question, but to get back to your point before I forget about kind of where you put your logistics into game demos. Again, like we've said, it really depends on what you're able to put out. If you cannot make a good demo for this game, if it is
Don't put it
just
out.
impossible, you can't think about other than taking 6 months to a year off to make it, most likely it's not going to be worth it. Because, like you said, a day that you spend working on your demo is a day you're not designing your game. And it's again that same mindset of someone's going to befall developers when it comes to marketing. That why should I be on Twitter all the time when I should be designing my game? But in that respect, you can hire somebody to do marketing and PR for you. You can't necessarily hire a demo team to build the demo for your game. And you have to, again, weigh those pros and cons. And it is why we've seen developers go to early access. We've seen this shift to streamer and YouTubers because a YouTuber covering your game, if they do it right and they enjoy it, that can be your entire marketing for the game in of itself. But
Exactly.
again, every game is different.
Exactly. All dependent on your genre, all dependent on the game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just really depends on what type of genre you have for that.
Mm-hmm. And like we said, like for a platformer, for a very reflex-driven game, you could just cut up a few levels, put it together, lo and behold, your demo is done. But if you want to make one that pops, you have to make sure that the pacing's there. You make sure that your demo still has an established beginning, middle, and end. Like Joshua said, you're designing a game within your game. And for certain titles, you may not be able to do that. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because and again, and it's like you're designing the game within the game, and then what parts of the game do I want to show? What parts can I show? What parts can I afford to show? What parts can fit in here? What can fit in the time, and still be a polished and working product that doesn't just blow up and explode when the player turns it on.
Or
Right.
you have all placeholder art and all the menus don't work. Oh, and like speaking about that, another thing that just really is a do not do, have temporary boxes or windows for dialogue, because we've seen some developers release demos and they're using like the Unity stock, windows and text for, here's your health bar, here's your control menu.
Yes, please don't do that.
I think Josh just had out body experience as I was describing that. And yet you have to be really careful about that point. Yeah, Unity base mesh.
All right, I'm gonna compose myself. Please don't do that. Please don't do that.
I think I just broke Josh for a few minutes. Before we get to Muma's question about demos and prologues, there is one other aspect of demos that I want to touch on, because it's another very interesting marketing strategy. And that is time-limited demos. This gets back to the Resident Evil 2 Remake one.
Yeah.
In that demo, for those of you who don't know what we're referring to, these are demos that are oftentimes literally the game itself, but we say that you can only play it for 45 minutes, or up 20 minutes, or 1 hour. And it's a very interesting. I feel there's some risk and reward to it. There was a demo to a platform, a 3D platform that I played last festival, that there is absolutely no way I think I'm going to find it on my wish list if I can. Maybe the tag 4 will work, it's hard to tell. But this was a 3D platformer that once you beat the kind of, I guess, the tutorial itself, they basically say, here's the hub, explore for as much as you want for 20 minutes. And then when that 20 minutes is up, demo's done, see you later, goodbye.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really clever idea. But again, when you go for this route, I think you're kind of, I guess you're losing the structure of your demo, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, you're kind of losing the structure of your demo, and is it really a demo? I mean, it kind of is a demo, but it more seems like a cop out. Like you're just kind of like, I didn't know how to make the demo, so here, just play it for a little bit. I don't know. I don't know how I feel. I've played a few demos like that too, time limited demos, and I felt a little iffy about it myself. I was like, because it's not curated to my experience and they're just kind of letting me do whatever, am I going to see what I need to see? Am I going to experience what I need to experience, right?
Yeah.
And so when I would play them, I always felt like I was doing it wrong, or maybe I wasn't getting it the demo correctly, right? Because it wasn't being told this is how the game's going to be. It's instead, here's the game, kind of figure it out or do what you want to do. I don't know, 15 minutes, have fun. So that, yeah.
And I think the word you use there, curated, is a really good point, because you want this experience to be perfect. You want the player, again, to walk away from your demo going, I want to play more of this. You don't want them to walk away saying, I've had my fill, or I didn't enjoy it, or, the demo crashed my computer, why would I ever load this back up again? And to a Moonmoss comment, it also means the demo's bigger. You don't want your demo to be like a 20 to 30 gig demo.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like if you that comes into play. Like, I mean, it's like, do you want like the demo, and it's like, okay, download demo, and you go to download, it says 20 gigs. Do you really want to download it? I mean, or if it's like a 4 gig or 3 gig, okay, cool, I could do that. But a 20 gig to play 5-10 minutes, it's kind of hard to agree with that, right?
Yeah, and especially, again, if we're talking about this from a festival standpoint, you could have 15, 20, or in my case, 70, 80 downloads. I mean, I basically have to save like 80 to 100 gigs per festival, the demos that I download.
I was wondering if you had to buy another external hard drive for every festival.
I may need to do that soon. Just buy a new hard drive every year. Could maybe be my strategy. And like if your demo is 20 gigabytes, 25, I mean 5 to 10 gigabytes.
Yeah.
Especially if somebody has a limited internet plan. Again, I am not your standard consumer. I should put as a preface for every show. So like for me, I can download 50, 100 gigabytes, like it's nothing every few days.
We could download all day, but there's some people who have meter connections. They pay for everything,
Yeah,
or they have the slowest connection possible, right?
yeah,
Not all of America's infrastructure, or even the global infrastructure for internet, is set
yeah,
up well. You know, there's some places that have none. So you got to keep that in mind too.
yeah. And if, again, you do not want to have hurdles for people to not be able to download your demo.
None.
And if somebody can't download your demo, again, that's another point. If your demo is 25 gigabytes, what's your main game going to be? Because people are going to start thinking, okay, I may never be able to download this game, or it will eat up my entire bandwidth cap just to play this one game.
This dude's 3D platformer is my whole hard drive.
Yeah, there you go. So let's talk about prologues, and then we'll kind of take stock and see
Sure.
where we're at in terms of
we
the
are.
conversation. So the idea of a prologue is something that has really become popular, I would say, in the last 3 years, maybe a little bit more than that. The difference between a demo and a prologue is that the demo is kind of, again, like the curated version of your game. It's a very bite-sized, very specific way of showing your game. The prologue should really just be a micro version of your full game. That when this prologue is done, I basically played a smaller version of your entire game. I should know every mechanic in your title, I should see every aspect of it. And then this is what I think when Mumuma was talking about having stuff carry over. Like for prologues, you definitely want that content to carry over. That if I
Super
spend,
cool too.
yeah,
That is super cool, and like if it carries over, that says a lot to me about your development team, your
mhm,
understanding, and your grasp on like demos or prologues or whatever. Because if stuff that's really neat if stuff carries
mhm,
over. But continue. Sorry, cut you off
yeah.
there.
And this is where I think, in terms of budgets, it gets a lot more complicated. Because, again,
Eh,
if a demo was like designing a second game, this could be like designing like 2 or 3 more games. Because, again, the prologue is unique. The prologue should not just be 20 minutes of your game. This should be its own unique beast. Some developers will oftentimes build their prologue as literally a prologue to their story. That, this is how we set up everything that's going to be in the main game. And it gets very complicated to do this. And when it works, it can, again, give you another marketing push. Because you can tell people, oh, you're not sure about my game? Try this. It's literally my game, but for 30 minutes to an hour. You enjoy it? Here's my main game right here with even more to it.
mhm. And are people usually doing the prologues like free download of the prologue? And or it right and try it out and then okay and then continue on to the game. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's definitely good. But again, I mean the infrastructure to that again. Now we're making 3 games, right?
Mm.
Or two. I think if you could be really smart, some kind of super game developer genius who can figure out how to make it work really well, and that the prologues seamlessly is developed into everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it still is. It's
It's a
still
lot
each
of
one is
work.
still its own entity.
Yeah, and again, like this would be something that would be very hard to do in, let's say, a strategy game or a grand strategy. I could
Yeah.
see like a puzzle or story-driven game could
Story
certainly
driven
work like
game, I
that.
think it would work best for story.
Mhm.
Puzzle, yeah. What is a good example of a prologue that you can come up with off the top of your head?
Hmm. And I've played so many as well that I'm having a tough time playing because, again, it's a very thin line, I
Yeah,
think, between a demo and a prologue. Let's
exactly,
see. If I type
exactly.
prologue in, some developers will just literally call their demos a
Yeah,
prologue as well, which makes it even
right.
more confusing. See if I can find any really
Yeah,
fast here. Let's see. Stone
I think
Shard
I
had a
know of one.
prologue. My goodness, there's a lot of games with prologue in the title now because when indie developers see a market trend, they will jump on it
Jump on it
for
for
sure.
sure, for sure.
Let's see, Squadron 51. Yeah, and like we're seeing a lot of developers label their demos as prologues. Oh yeah, Mr. Prepper, I remember that one. That was one that I broke the tutorial in the onboarding. Let's see, anything else? Yeah, like I would say city builders in particular could be a really good example of a prologue edition. Because a city builder itself is already very free form in nature, unless you are going straight up for like a mission or a stage based structure. So you can basically give somebody, like, let's say, a quarter of your sandbox of a city builder and release that as a prologue and say, oh, you like building with all this? Well, here's all of this over here that's in our finished version for, 1999 or 24.99 or whatever. Let's
Excellent.
see, I'm trying to find any other ones. Let's see, The Legend of Keepers. It was kind of like a sort of Darkest Dungeon, but you're playing as the bad guys kind of game. That one had a prologue for a time. I guess the Unexpected Quest. And why? Oh, that one. It was kind of like a management sim. So yeah, there's a lot of games that have had prologues. I would say adventure games could also
Adventure
go
games.
well. Like I know there are examples of this, but I cannot remember off the top of my head of the prologue being like, let's say, a starter case, or like again something, or like its own little vignette that would set up the events in the main game.
Yeah, I'm thinking like golly, didn't like what was those adventure games like The Wolf Among Us?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they had like some distinct demos that were no, I think I'm wrong on that.
Mm. I
Heavy
know there's been a
Rain?
few.
Did Heavy Rain have a strange demo too? Not sure.
Don't
Anyway.
remember. Let's see. One of the games I played, Sanabi, Sanabi. Like, I would say this is where we can also get to the point of having a lengthier version of your game. Like a demo should be 20 to 30 minutes. If you want to label it a prologue, you could go longer than that. Like if your demo, or should I say quote unquote demo, is an hour, 2 hours long, I would say brand that as a prologue edition of your game. Because again, it's all about how you market, how somebody's perceiving this content. If you say it's a demo, but it's 5 hours long, most people aren't going to touch that. But if you
No.
say it's a prologue and that this is a subset of our game, all progress carries over, this is essentially a chunk of our game for free for you to play, I think that is perceived better. And it
Yeah,
gets to what
definitely.
to Pug's comment about MMO trials. There have been many MMOs that have changed their entire beginning of the game to say, okay, first 20 levels free, first 40 levels are free. You want to try our game, you want to spend $15 a month or whatever. Here, take this whole aspect of our game, play it for as long as you want, for as much as you want, and then the second you go, if this is the line, the second you go over here, okay, now, you want to play more?
Yeah,
Time to pay.
there you go. Time to play. And then you got plenty of time because I think like for Final Fantasy 14 you get to like level 60.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean you can see so much of the game and by then you're hooked or
Mm-hmm.
you're not. I mean you're yeah, so
And I think this also solves what we were talking about with the kind of the pressure of playing a time limited demo. Because when
yeah.
you see that, I don't know if I'm sure everyone else is the
Start
same
freaking out,
way.
man.
Yeah, when you start seeing that countdown, saying, okay, there's only 49 minutes left. Now there's 48 minutes left. You're not really focusing on the game.
It's
But
like
if
I'm
you,
playing Dead Rising all over again.
yeah. But again, if you can, and I would say Dead Rising. I'm pretty sure they had a very interesting demo for Dead Rising, if I
I bet you
remember.
they did, right? They
Yeah.
probably had some groundbreaking demo.
Yeah. And again, if you can have that lengthy experience and make it its own game, you can kind of position it as that prologue. And yet, to Joe's comments, city builders, free form style games can work like that. But here's again that point you need to keep in mind. A prologue is still building a game. You still need to make sure that it is as high a quality of your game, even higher quality than
Higher.
your main game.
Yeah. Yeah. Even higher. Yeah. And like way higher than demo. Like we're talking game. So
Yeah, and again,
it's
like if we're talking about Prologue, there's no temporary assets. There is nothing. You cannot release a Prologue and say things are coming later. This Prologue, when it's released,
no, the prologue means the game,
yeah,
another game's coming later.
you,
This is done.
yeah, like you should not have to be updating your Prologue. Your Prologue should be released and treat it as a the retail version of your game, basically. Like you do not want to say the Prologue's out, we're going to update this for 6 more months. No, the Prologue's out. This bit of marketing is now done. All attention goes to your main game.
Yeah, that's where you would go maybe to early access, right? If you're going to be working on it for 6 months or whatever, right? Prologue's not where you want to go there.
Yeah. And it can, like we said, this can certainly work. I would again argue that if your game is more on the traditional side or something that can be very bite-sized, you probably don't want to go with a Prologue. Like if it's a platformer, for instance, and you're giving away, the first 2-3 hours of it for free, I feel again that may be too much.
Yeah, I can't for the life of me. I played this coolest platformer. A couple weeks ago back, I played the demo, and it was a really long. Like it got like you know how we're talking about the levels. We'll have World 1, World 2, World 3, World 4. So up like half of the game, I played on the platform. And I was like, well, I think I got it, and I beat it. I had a blast. I wanted to keep playing it, but the game wasn't going to be released for a while, and I forgot about it. So now I don't remember the name.
Yeah, and again, like if people are starting to go, "Oh my god, how much more is in this demo?"
Yeah,
that may be the sign that your demo is too long.
I was like, "Wow, there's another world," and then it just went on level after level after level. I was like,
the demo to that game I really like, Soldiers, Souldiers. Like that was a demo. We spent like an hour to an hour and a half on that demo. And we weren't done yet playing it, and we were enjoying it. But I think a demo should be completable in one sitting. That I should be able to sit down, play your demo, get up, and be done. Like if you have to go back 2, 3, 4 times to play a demo, it's too big. And again, that's when we get into prologue territory. And it is, again, how you market and position this. It's a 5-hour demo is different than saying, here's a 5-hour prologue.
Definitely.
Cutting out the ending. That is very interesting. Again, when we talk about simulation style games or sandbox style games, we kind of get into a different mindset in terms of what we want to see. Like, again, like a 10-minute demo to a simulation game is worthless. Like, what are we going to actually do in 10 minutes?
Yeah, I think I've played some some demos, and they'd let you play like a whole round, like a Civ or whatever, like a whole round, and it would let you play, but in maybe like with just one faction or something like that.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah, and that's another way of positioning your prologue. When we talk about again, strategy games in particular are very hard to design a demo around, because you can't just cut up, let's say, 50 of 500 turns of Civ and say, here's your demo. On turn 50, the demo ends. Okay, so what's the other 450 turns of this game going to look like?
And I wanted one more turn, by the way.
I've also seen, like, for tactical strategy style games, like having like a battle or having a set of scenarios can also work. But in this case, it's not exactly structured like the main game. You're just saying, okay, here's a mission of, defend the base. Here's a mission, beat all the enemies. and go like that. And that's another way of doing it. But
Mhm.
again, you need to make sure your onboarding is on point for that,
Right.
especially when you are cutting things up along those lines.
Right, and so the thing is like what units can you remove? What
Hmm.
like can you and that makes it hard, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're not showing all the things, and then what are you taking out? What essence don't you know that as a developer that you're taking out that is like that one special seasoning? That one little unit
Hmm.
is the one that everybody's going to be like, yeah, that one rules, but you can't put it in because it's in a later level, right? Real hard balance there.
Yep, and like we said, the point of your demo, the point of your prologue, you gotta show the hook. You
The
need
hook.
somebody to know by the end of it, this is something that I want to keep playing. Because if your
Mhm.
whole demo, your whole prologue is just, the same stuff we see in every other example of that genre, okay, it's like, yeah, it's nice, but why should I give you $20 for this, or $10, or whatever?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I guess, in I'm trying to think. Like Disco Elysium did not have a demo, right? I think it was just all straight.
Did
Yeah,
it
I'm not
not?
seeing anything demo or early builds. And again, like for developers watching this, we're not talking about sending builds to YouTubers and streamers.
No,
Like this
no,
is
no, no.
completely different. We're talking about putting out again a product or a trial of your game for everybody to experience. So if you're wondering about, do I send my press copy or my pre-release build to a YouTuber? That's a completely different conversation.
Totally different world. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. We're talking about a professional demo that you're going to
Hmm.
put at a festival, the next festival or something like that. But that's like that's your thing. This is the game. This is
Yeah,
what the game is going to be. So yeah, totally different than an internal build that you might give to a publisher or an investor or something like that. Those you need to build because you're always building your game. So you should
hmm,
have a build of your game that you can, you know, show or give to developers or investors and stuff like that.
yeah,
Totally different though.
yeah. So I think I have one more topic, and I think that's going to do it for me. Do you have any other
Okay.
topics you want to discuss?
No, I think I was just the logistics was my main one.
Hmm.
That's it.
Okay. So I think my final point, if you guys have any other questions
Check
for us about
questions.
this, let us know in the comments because we'll wrap things up probably after this point. Yeah, Arkham Games, Soldak, Spiderweb, they had their shareware demos. Spiderweb, I think, thank you for bringing up Soul because it brought me to Spiderweb. Like, they've been really good with their demos in being that prologue. That they will basically say, here's the first, here's the entirety of chapter one of my RPG. And then the second you clear that, okay, you want to see more, you have to pay for it. But everything that is function wise and feature wise is complete within that space. And again, it really depends on a game by game basis. So, my final point that I want to bring up is when is it time to put out a demo? When should you consider Next Fest or start marketing and putting out this kind of content? Because, like we said, there are some developers who, very first version of their game, it goes up on Next Fest. Some developers, like Clay, they will wait until their game is like maybe like 60 to 80% done, and then we release the public version. And it's a very hard line to walk in terms of when it's time to show it off.
Right. I do lean toward if you're releasing a demo, the demo should be almost when you're almost done, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think that you should have been doing all your marketing pushing, all your tweeting, all your other videos, everything else leading up to that point. And maybe you can do a demo release like like a little bit before,
Mm-hmm.
and that's probably the best. So if your game's almost done, 60 70%, not a lot of the major mechanics are going to be changing, then that's a good time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Or you plan from the start to have a demo, right? Like, okay, my roguelike is going to be well built for a demo. I think it's going to be the best way to do marketing
Mm-hmm.
because there's no way I can explain to you the time mechanic in the mathematician class you're going to need to play them yourself to see how it works, right? Or whatever. And I think so. If you know your game is too unique, then plan ahead to start making a build with that in scope, right?
Mhm.
But definitely, I think waiting toward the end when it's way more polished is good because you mentioned that one. I forgot the game you mentioned when major mechanic was missing, and I
Mhm.
think maybe a part of that is they were building the
Mhm.
demo and working on the game, and so like that mechanic
Mhm.
maybe didn't get added till later, right? And so then again, you have a disconnect from the demo to the final version. So if you
Mhm.
wait till later in production to do a demo, when you can literally almost
Mhm.
maybe just rip out portions easier,
Mhm.
like Mumama was saying, and we can just rip them out later. And when it's finished and polished, I think that's probably the more opportune time to
Yeah.
do it. Doing it way earlier with placeholders and this and that and saying it will be like this soon is really hokey, not good, not
Yeah.
professional. We're way past that in game development, and no one's gonna buy it
Yeah.
or take a look at it.
And to Muma's comment, I'm glad they brought that up about demo prologue for crowdfunding. That is certainly an option that you can
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
And that, again, has its own unique can of worms. Because you want to make sure that, again, especially if you're crowdfunding, your demo needs to be on point. Because we've
on point.
seen Kickstarters where they'll put out a demo of their game, all unfinished assets, all, stock Unity dialogue boxes and stuff like that. If we're talking about for crowdfunding, your demo probably needs to be, again, super high class. There was a demo to a game that I played. Oh no. Again, Dwarf. There it is. That this was kind of like a tower defense, almost like action adventure tower defense game, and they did a Kickstarter with the demo and the prologue included in that. And that prologue or that demo was really solid. Again, it went through all the onboarding, it showed me all the unique elements, it ended with a hook, and that was a really great marketing point. But
Hmm.
I guess I would also argue that if you do a demo that early into development, unless you nail it perfectly, you may want to consider doing a second demo around the time of launch or a more updated version of it. Because again, you want the demo to sell the version of your game that is available. If your prologue, let's say, demo is missing 5, 10 different systems or mechanics that you developed over the course of your game, it may be worth it to redo the demo or even at
Yeah,
that point delist it and put up a brand new one.
delisted. Right, right. And I had like I did that like for one of my very first mobile games. I had a demo, and the demo was not even anything close to how it ended. Like again, I used like some different placeholder
Mm-hmm.
art and stuff in my first mobile game when I did the demo. Terrible, a horrible thing. And then I re-released the demo later, and it did a little better. But again, the yields from the demo weren't as good because I had to consider
Uh oh.
and so I didn't end up yielding any positive returns from that
Yeah.
mobile demo, but
You
yeah.
kind of froze for 1 second there.
Oh man. I'm on my backup camera too.
Yep. And I think that also gets to the point that you were saying that if, let's say, your game is still 2, 3, 4 years out, it's probably not in the position development wise for you to have a demo. You can put out trailers. Again, trailers being its own thing. Like, again, we saw that with Cuphead. But if your game is still that early, you don't. I don't think. Even if you can put out a really good demo of it, it may not be the best representation of your game, especially
Yeah.
if it still has this many years worth of content that still needs to come.
Right. Right. And even though like game development is like we plan as much as we can, it's really fluid and really organic and
Mm-hmm.
things change constantly, right? We'll find maybe a new technology or a new way to do
Mm-hmm.
this or a new way to do that, or we decided, you know what, this mechanic is no good, right? Or this works and this doesn't. And so it's very fluid and always changing. And so if you putting out an immediate demo at the very beginning when you think the game's going to be like this, and then as it evolves and evolves and evolves, right? And then again, you wasted a lot of time creating this one static demo that is not probably that is not a representation of the game at all. Mumuma was mentioning about funding, using the funding for the game. I think that if you're looking for funding, and you don't have like a demo enough, like something that you can present, you should be, looking at investors or taking your internal
Hmm.
build and taking that to investors, publishers, stuff like that. If you're interested in that, trying to get funding, but when we come to crowdfunding, you need to be way further along. Like you were saying, Josh, it has
Hmm.
to be professional. We're in a different ball game when you're doing prologues or when you're doing crowdfunding, things like that, because it has to be top notch for people to say, okay, I'm investing in this, right? And the other way is where you can just not show anything off, do your trailers, do everything else, do your other marketing, and you can crowdfund that way. So if you're crowdfunding and you're crowdfunding with the demo too, that's a ton of extra overhead and a ton of extra work that you have to do. And as indie developers, we have to do everything ourselves, wear many hats. So that might be a little overload, especially for if it's your first time doing a crowdfunding like that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and the sad thing is, I've seen a lot of Kickstarters fail because they're just not able to present enough to
yeah,
convince people. And again, when you're selling a Kickstarter, and again, like this is definitely getting off topic as well. You need to show people why they should support you, whether it's because of your name or because you have something that is unique. Again, like when people like a Tim Schafer or a Yu Suzuki or um, the developer of the Metroidvanias, Iga, I forget his last name, when they went to Kickstarter, they have their entire body of work that they can draw on. If
yeah,
you're a new developer, you don't have that clout, so you need to unfortunately do 5, 10 times more work to prove to people that you're worth listening to. Yeah,
yeah.
all the clones,
Oh.
exactly. And
Right, Josh. I know you need some too.
yeah,
I know you need clones.
I need a few dozen, I think, at this
Hmm.
point. But trying to think if there's anything else regarding time wise. Yeah, like, and again, you should also be aware of major festivals, major events, and if your demo is not at the point yet for a Steam festival or a specific indie festival, it's better not to include it if, again, you can't show it in the best light. I'm going to
Yeah.
close my door and hear some work going on downstairs.
Yeah, like it's better. It's better not, because like people are not going to look there. People are not downloading your demo with empathy, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
not downloading and being like, I know this developer's putting in his hard work and it's going to be so much better, and that they're not thinking that, right? And I know a lot of developers are thinking, of course gamers know that I'm going to change this stock art, and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
they don't know. What you show them is what you show them, and that's what they see, right?
Yep.
So again, if you can't, if you, it has to be in the best light, and if you don't feel it's ready, or if there's just something missing, even if you feel it's ready, maybe check with some other devs around you, or some other
Mm-hmm.
journalists, or some, check around and double check, because it might not be ready, and it really might be more detrimental than you think. Like, I think some people think if they just put out a demo, it shows something, it says something, hey, I'm working on and this and that, but it doesn't. It shows more like, this is what this is all I can do, I think, is what people take from
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and that is not the impression you want people to have.
Yeah.
You want them to go, okay, this is impressive. This person must have more up their sleeve in the main game. And if you can do that, if you can get that impression across, then you're definitely along the way there. And we've unfortunately I've seen a lot of demos and prologues or just like these early versions that people walk away unhappy that they don't want to play more of this game.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it doesn't matter how much you improve if that demo is still kind of like that or that red stain on your record.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Definitely.
So I think I can't think of anything else in terms of demos and prologues. Anything on your side?
I think at the beginning I was a little more anti-demo. I think you've persuaded me over to being a little more pro demo at the end of that. So I definitely believe for in these very interesting concepts, I think a demo is probably more vital than I first thought. Especially, you mentioned all those demos before and things that you derived from them and extrapolated from them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think demos definitely have their place still. Again, Mm, if your demo's not ready, don't show it. It's better to,
Mm-hmm.
what is the saying, to not speak at all or something. Anyway, uh, just don't show your demo. If it's not good enough, it's not ready. It has to be good. If you're thinking about maybe early access or something like that, you got to stay on top of it. That's like a daily grind, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
you are running a live service as an early access. Don't think of early access as a demo. It's really a live service that daily you need to stay up to date. Otherwise, people will just run away. They'll just
Mm-hmm.
leave due to lack of interest. Um, Probably go in circles, but I think that covers it up, Josh.
Mm-hmm. The scary part, I'm looking at my wish list right now. There's so many games that are actually released that I completely didn't realize they were out yet. So yeah, there's so many games out there, and you need to make sure that when somebody experiences your game, that they get the best experience. And and again, there is no shame in not having a demo. I think that's a
Yeah,
very important point.
yeah.
Like,
Puckcake says he's still anti-demo. He's a developer too,
yeah,
and he's anti-demo. I mean, some of us are anti-demo because we just feel like
mm-hmm,
the logistics of it, like we said, taking nearly half a year to develop a
mm-hmm,
demo because it has to be good, it has to be really
yeah,
good, um
it's
is
yeah, it's something just like with all aspects of your game. If you want to include it, you need to put that into the initial plan. Just like with
yeah,
multiplayer, just like with
right,
designing systems. You don't want to wait until your game is 90% done and say, okay, now let's spend 6 months on a demo. You
right.
want to plan everything out like this.
Break me twice this
Yeah.
podcast.
And again, that's also good if you're working with a publisher, because if you can tell them, okay, we're going to have a demo ready for you, let's say around this point of development, they can plan their marketing around that. I have gotten many publisher and PR emails telling me, demo out for this game, demo coming soon. It's all, again, a form of this marketing, and it's something that you need to prepare for. And again, it's better not to do something badly or it's better not to do something if you can't do it well than to do it and have it come out horrible or that it hurts your brand, because then that stays with you.
Definitely, definitely. And I mean, again, and you mentioned again, like, they're not gonna, like, okay, well, you put out the demo and you're like, oh boy, I really need to update this and do update. They're not gonna go back and download the update and keep trying the new
Yes.
one. Be like, hey, I moved some enemies around and I added that mechanic I forgot. They're gonna, nope, no time. I'm downloading this new one. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
No one is going to say, I hated your demo the first time I play it, but you know what? I'm going to give you a second chance 6 months later. I'm going to try it again.
right.
Unless you're like masochistic like me who plays all these demos,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
not
right,
going to find
right.
someone who's going to keep coming back and trying to, hey, maybe the third time's the charm, maybe the 16th time's the charm.
I know they're gonna get it right in the 16th time for sure. Yeah,
Yep, and
it
exactly
is.
move
It
them
is
up.
one shot for indies, definitely. Like the demos. So that is like, yeah, okay. So one point for sure. As an indie, probably that's who's listening. We don't have any AAA developers listening to us. Um, but as an indie, you really do only have one shot,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so make it the best shot you have. And there's so many other ways that you can market, you can advertise, you can do other things.
Trailers, Twitter, whatever.
Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, all the other things. YouTube, make a little make a devlogs. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you name it. There's so many other ways to do it than putting out a bad janky demo. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
literally, like I don't know how many times just the menu alone, controls alone. Was it Muhammad was talking? I think he had a. Let me see. Scroll up. I don't want to do it wrong
Mm-hmm.
here. Had a demo. He had a demo out in the controls. You
Yeah.
know, no one could figure out the controls, and that's a big one for me. Huge. I mean, anyone, right? You can't figure out the controls, and that's it.
Yeah,
So,
and again, that's another pro tip. If your demo has bugs and it has known issues, do not release that as your public demo. Again, there's a difference between having issues in your game that you know and having stuff that you don't know. Because
right.
I've seen developers, again, this is its own topic, who 1.0 their game has known issues in it. And then they try to fix it a week, a month, 2 months later. Like Josh said, and Muma, you got one shot. And if people don't, most people are not going to give you a second chance. Or, I hate this game, but I'm going to still keep it on my wish list.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that's a big point about from Pug. Like, for Axis, for instance, like, when they announced, like, XCOM 2, I think it was, like, coming, like, 6 months, 8 months after their actual announcement that the game was even in existence.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, again, it's better, again, to
My
keep that hype.
My favorite is when they announce the game and they release it that day. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's the cool one.
That
Go
is
ahead.
some, and again, that is definitely not a stretch that any developer wants to do.
No, don't do it.
No,
Don't do it.
Do not do that as an indie dev. That is something that is like Nintendo Praxis level
AAA,
clout
yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Devlog topic for podcast. That could be something maybe we could discuss. Yeah, toughness. All right, but I think with that, let us wrap things up. And I'm still
How long have we been going, Josh?
an hour and
yet?
40 minutes.
No
I'm sorry,
Elden Ring mentioned.
Yeah.
No Elden Ring this time.
Yeah, almost. But yeah, we went through the entire time, 0 drop frames on OBS.
That's
Nobody,
awesome.
We've been stuttering or freezing at all. It's been fantastic.
Everybody staying in the chat.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. But we will say goodnight here. We will be back next Saturday around 5 p.m. ET. So if you want to follow me and all my stuff, there's links, or there's the information up there. There's links in the description for books. Check out our Discord, all that.
Yeah, and if you want to follow me, links, of course, will be down there below. I'm just at casual, CASUL_scrub on Twitter. Follow me there. You can follow all my game work, working on Samurai Pig. Join Josh's Discord, hang out, chat with us. If you have any ideas for future upcoming topics, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Not so much a new internet plug, but finally getting someone out there who fixed the issue that I've had for the last 2 years. So
yeah,
it's been wonderful here. Yeah, and like I said, check out my books. Hopefully in the next week or two, I will have an official announcement for the next 2 in the series. So everybody, come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. And until next time, take care.
Take care.